today's coverage of the lower house. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. The session will start with prayers, followed by a roll call of those in attendance. This is usually followed by questions and answers to questions, statements by ministers, items under public business, and private members' motions. But before we begin, let's try a parliamentary trivia question. True or false? A parliamentary secretary leads the daily operations of the parliament. Get the answer at the end of this introduction. On the session's agenda, under public business,
Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport, Olivia Grange is down to make her presentation. Opposition spokesperson on gender affairs, persons with disabilities and inclusion, Denise Daley, is also down to make her presentation.
That's what's on the agenda. It should be noted that elements of the day's agenda can be changed or moved. But before we go, here are a few things you should bear in mind if you plan to attend a session at Gordon House. No visitor shall create any act of disorder within the precincts of the house. No visitor shall be admitted to the house without first obtaining an admission card. Visitors who remain within the precincts of the house during a suspension of the session are asked to keep silent. No photography, videography, or sketching of the proceedings is allowed, unless so authorized by the presiding officer. It's almost time to go to the main event, but before that, let's get the answer to our trivia question. We asked, true or false? A parliamentary secretary leads the daily operations of the parliament. It's false. A parliamentary secretary is a member of parliament in the Westminster system who assists a more senior minister with their duties. In several countries, the position has been redesigned as assistant or junior minister. Senator Abka Fitzhenley assumed the role of parliamentary secretary in the office of the Prime Minister. Parliamentary secretaries play a vital, if often unrecognized, role in assisting cabinet ministers and providing a link between ministers and parliamentarians, given that the role of parliamentary secretary is largely defined by the Prime Minister. Now over to the proceedings.
I lost my husband to gun violence. My child will never know her father. Jamaica, please stop the senseless killings.
What can a little germs do?
Pink eye running belly, even flu. Germs can make them happen to you.
Put germs on our manners with these. Cover your mouth when you cough and sneeze. Always wash your hand with water and soap. Keep dirty hands from your eyes and your nose and your mouth. You don't want to be sick, take care. Practice every day, no germs round here. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Violence against women and girls is a human problem. Not just a woman's problem. It's a problem for men too. Gender violence takes many forms, including sexual assault, domestic violence, relationship abuse, sexual harassment, and sexual abuse of children. The magnitude of ongoing violence against women and children in our country is cause for alarm. We can end the violence. It requires all of us to end the violence. I call on all our men and women in Jamaica to take a stand. And men, especially, must get involved in this movement to create a better world for their daughters, their mothers, their sisters, their aunts, their uncles, their fathers, their sons, and for themselves. Let's protect and reassure. Let's unite to end gender violence.
We want you to enjoy the beauty of
our island home, and that includes your beaches. That is why we are upgrading at least 9 beaches and equipping them with restrooms and other amenities for your comfort. Jamaica's beaches are your beaches. Your government cares about your recreational environment.
How do bills become law in Jamaica? Laws are made to create order, to ensure our safety, and to protect our rights against abuses by other citizens, organizations, and even the government itself. A bill is a proposal for either a new law or for a change to an existing law. Jamaica's parliament is responsible for making our laws, and that responsibility is shared between 2 houses. There are 21 parliamentarians appointed from both political parties to the upper house, also known as the Senate. And there are 63 members of parliament that we, the people, elect to the lower house, also known as the House of Representatives. To pass a law, there is a minimum of 6 stages required in each house. The process can begin in the upper house by a senator or in the lower house by your member of parliament. And their proposals for a new bill can certainly start with you, the citizen. Now, since the process often begins in the House of Representatives, let's start there. 1. The first stage begins with the introduction by the minister responsible for the bill, followed by the first reading of the bill by the clerk to the houses. This clerk is more like the CEO, the Chief Executive Officer for the Parliament. An announcement of the bill is published in the Gazette. This is a public newsletter that the government uses to inform the citizens of what the Parliament is doing on your behalf. 2. The second reading begins with a summary of the bill by the minister. The main reasons for the bill are discussed both by the government and opposition members to determine if Jamaicans would really be better off with the new law or changes to an existing law. A vote is taken by the House to determine if the bill will move to the committee stage. Sometimes before going to that stage, the minister responsible for the bill can recommend the use of a joint select committee. It's called joint as its members are taken from both the upper and lower house. To benefit from greater consultation, the committee is empowered to invite the public to share their views of the bill in writing or in person, and does so through radio, TV, and newspaper adverts. This joint select committee submits its recommendations to the House of Representatives. The House debates this report, and a vote is taken to determine if the bill should go on to the committee stage, where it is examined by a committee of the whole House. Yes, that's the name. And that's what it is, a committee of all the members of Parliament that carefully examines each clause and makes improvements to ensure the bill will achieve its objectives. As chairman, the Speaker of the House monitors the process to make sure the rules of the House are obeyed and the process moves along smoothly. 4. The Committee of the whole House examines the bill clause by clause, then sends its recommendations for changes to the House of Representatives. This is called the report stage. 5. The bill then passes to the third reading to allow a final opportunity for MPs to make changes before it is sent to senators in the upper house. 6 to 10. In the upper house, the senators go through the same steps we just described. If any changes are made, the bill has to be returned to the House of Representatives for their discussion and approval. Now, if the bill had started in the upper house, it would also have to be returned to them for approval of any changes made by the lower house. 11. Throughout the entire process, the bill is being checked by the Legislative Council. That's the Parliament's lawyer. But before the last step, a copy is sent to the Attorney General of Jamaica for final review and certification. 12. If all is well, the bill is sent to receive the royal assent from the Governor General as the representative of the Queen, Elizabeth II. The bill is now an Act of Parliament. The Act is gazetted, and the rights of Jamaicans are further preserved and protected by a new law.
Just meds it.
Instead of hurting and fighting each other.
Let's help each other.
We don't need to fight.
We're all here to learn.
Your classmate could be a future lawyer or minister.
Do you know that your classmate
or your schoolmate could be a future prime minister.
So here what? Just make daddy proud. Not have me a worry.
Don't fight or lash out. Violence is never the answer.
Before you pick up a stone,
Why not pick up your book?
And just meds it.
We all have our part to play.
Let's end violence.
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 We must end violence in schools now.
Cook it up and make we steam it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Cook it up and make we roast it. Farm fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Grow smart at the best part. Food for thought so me have to eat smart. Easy catch, full in it. A tilapia so you don't know what's next. Cook it up and make we fry it. Fresh so me need it, tilapia a real fish. Bring home the best in freshwater fish. High content of vitamin B3, protein and potassium. Tilapia, simple, healthy, delicious.
Public passenger vehicle operators and commercial carriers. Renew your road license online. It's as easy as 1-2 click. Visit the Transport Authority website at www.ta.org.jm. Choose your license type and click Apply Now. Sign in or create an account with your email address and complete the application process, uploading all relevant documents. Make payment using a debit or credit card. Once your application is approved, the Transport Authority will email you to collect your sticker. Pick up your sticker in office or utilize our courier service. Once the sticker is collected, your digital road license will be emailed to you. For more information, call the Transport Authority toll-free at 888-991-5687.
No more guarantors for student loan. Your government cares about your education, and we don't want you to ever have to worry about going to university. The Students' Loan Bureau has a loan for you, so you can focus on your future.
We want a piece for Jamaica.
Yo, what are you? Oh man, none of that. No, brother, no, man, mash up that.
You see you ever play ref? Dirty game,
yeah,
no
but
play.
a little bad game. No, I said, person who come from, brother, I want to live good, man. I want to live good, brethren. No shake hand, I can play a little bad, brethren.
Really have to shake hand?
Yeah, man, and no badness, brethren. Just live good, man.
Come together as one and make the violence done.
I'm Seth Grenell from Grenell's Driving School, and today we want to speak about distracted driving. What is it? It is having your focus removed from the driving task ahead. And there are various kinds of distractions. You have visual distractions where your eyes are no longer on the road. You have physical distractions where your hands are not on the steering wheel. And you have mental distraction where your mind is no longer on driving. Now, some of us might already know what's the number one thing that distracts us on the road? The cell phone. Texting while driving, talking on the phone while driving, even if it is Bluetooth or handheld, can be a great distraction. Because once our mind is removed from what's happening, then we're likely to not be as focused while driving. Now, I've seen people having the steering wheel propped in between their legs and sending full-on messages. That can't be safe. One of the things that we do while we're texting and driving is that we assume that the road environment is not going to change, that the traffic situation is not going to change, and it happens within a split second. A car that was in front of you moving can stop suddenly, and because you're on your phone, you can't see that you now need to apply the brake. Distractions while driving is a no-no. Even real estate, You have people who are driving and looking through the window, looking and saying, boy, I like the house there. I wish I could have lived here, so what color paint is that? And they are not aware of what's happening in front of them. I can add this to it too. I know some people that when they're at the traffic light, the red light, they say, okay, I can now send my text message. But you're also not aware of what's happening around you. Safety, elements that are unsavory might find you an easy target because you don't see what's happening. So, when we're driving, let us be 100% focused on the task of driving. No cell phones, no physical distractions, no mental distractions, and no visual distractions. Full focus on the driving task at hand.
Since 2016, 156,000 more Jamaicans are working. This is more than any other time in our history. Your government is caring for you.
Are you or anyone you know in need of a birth certificate, earning minimum wage and born in Jamaica? Visit your Member of Parliament's office or any of the Registrar General's Department offices island-wide and request assistance under the Operation Birthright program. For more information on Operation Birthright or to see whether you are eligible under the program, visit nidsfax.com or rgd.gov.jm. Conditions apply.
Jamaica's economy is in the best shape ever. Everybody abroad and abroad are talk about it. Your government is investing in our hospitals, parks, community clinics, roads, and water infrastructure.
One of the problems that occurred in the past was the significant delay in the issuing of warrants for persons who did not pay at the tax office and did not attend the court. And so what happened there was that a culture of impunity had developed, where persons felt that when they received a ticket from the police, they could simply ignore it. So where we are now is that we are now current with the issuing of warrants in respect of the current cases. So what that means is that for persons who do not pay at the tax office, don't attend the court, the warrants are being issued and will be issued, and you will be arrested and brought before the court. If you do not wish to come to court, then go to the tax office. Also, you have the option of contesting it, so you don't pay at the tax office, but you must turn up at court on the date and time stated in the summons. Failing that, a warrant will be issued and you will be brought before the court.
Members of this Honourable House here present, I wish to inform you that the Speaker and the Deputy Speaker are unavoidably absent from today's meeting. In accordance with Standing Order 4.2, I now call upon you to elect from among yourselves as Speaker a member who is not a Minister or Parliamentary Secretary.
The clerk having indicated the current situation, as House Leader, I beg to propose that the member from Southeast St. Catherine be nominated as the Speaker Pro Tem.
I beg to second that nomination.
Everybody. Members, let's be upstanding to receive the Speaker Pro Tem.
No, sir. Okay, then.
Hold on.
Are there any further nominations?
No.
Are there any further nominations? Are there? Are there any further nominations?
No.
I now invite the member from St. Catherine Southeastern to take the chair as the speaker for today's sitting.
Rise, you to rise. Everybody is to be upstanding. Still Busher. Now you bow to him. Yes. And you bow to us. And you bow to that. Good. Well done.
Let me thank the members of this honorable House for instilling me to be the Speaker of today. I would also like to use the opportunity to welcome to this honorable House former Ambassador of the United Kingdom, George Ramakan. Also members of the gallery, visitors of the gallery, that are seated here, and also those on social media. Thanks for being here at today's sitting of Parliament, Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. The Honourable House now resume its sitting. It is indeed a great honour and pleasure to welcome all of you to the sitting of this Honourable House of Representatives on Tuesday, June 25th, 2024. I did extend welcome to persons that are here, and we will move on with the proceedings of today's sitting. Call of the roll.
Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Mr. Clark, Mr. Bartlett, Mr. Holness, Dr. Clark, Dr. Chang, Miss Grange, Mrs. Williams, Mrs. Malahoo Ford, Dr. Tufton, Mr. Mackenzie, Mr. Chuck, Mr. Vaz, Mr. Charles, Mr. Green, Mr. Morgan, Mr. Hutchinson, Mr. Terry Long, Miss Smith, Dr. Dunn, Mrs. Cuthbert Flynn, Mr. Main, Mr. Davis, Mr. Witter, Mr. Brown, Dr. Brown Burke, Dr. Charles, Mr. Chin, Mr. Cousins, Miss Crawford, Miss Daley, Miss Davis, Mr. Golding, Mr. Graham, Dr. Guy, Miss Hamilton, Miss Hannah, Mr. Enriquez, Mr. Henry, Mr. Hilton, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Lawrence, Miss Lee, Mr. Miller, Mr. Montague, Miss Morrison, Mrs. Nita Garvey, Mr. Paulwell, Mr. Phillips, Dr. Phillips, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Robinson, Mr. Samudo, Mr. Shaw, Mr. Sibley, Mr. Slowly, Mrs. Vaz, Mrs. Vaz, Mr. Warmington, Dr. Wheatley, Mr. Williams, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Wright.
House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to, on behalf of the members of the House, to welcome you to the chair. We are very pleased that you were able to fill in today, and we know of your capabilities, and we are satisfied that the full cooperation of all members will be accorded to you today to enable the House to move with alacrity and, of course, with the efficiency that have characterized our sittings over the past few sessions. Mr. Speaker, I'd like also to join you in welcoming the members in the gallery who are here, representing, I'm sure, the portfolio areas of our Deputy House Leader and Minister of Gender, Sports, Culture, and everything else. And of course, the member from St. Catherine North, is it Northeast? Eastern, yes, Eastern today. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg to move also that we suspend the agenda items leading up to public business so as to allow for the continuation of the sectoral debate. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Statement by ministers.
Mr. Speaker, today we pause to reflect on the life and worth of one who had served in this chamber with great distinction and served not only as a member of this honorable House for 3 consecutive terms, but also as the first female Speaker of the House of Representatives in the history of Jamaica. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to pay tribute today to a pioneer in women's political participation, Mrs. Violet Asentha Nielsen, the first woman Speaker of the House of Representatives. Mrs. Nielsen's historic elevation, particularly at that time in history, was an exciting one. Mrs. Nielsen was a 3-term Member of Parliament. She was first elected as the representative for St. James East Central in 1989 and served in this honorable House until 2002. She served representing her constituents, indeed, Mr. Speaker, with fervor and great dedication. During her tenure as a parliamentarian, Mrs. Nielsen served in the executive branch as Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Development, Planning and Production, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Education, and Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Health. Mrs. Nielsen was also elected Deputy Speaker of the House, a point we had not made earlier in our comment, and of course later Speaker of the House of Representatives. A position that she held as Speaker from 1997 I think that's when one or two members in this chamber joined for the first time, until 2002, when she actually retired from active politics. Mrs. Nielsen was a woman of the people and for the people. And Mr. Speaker, I can reference that because not only was it that she served her community in Somerton, St. James, from which she came with great distinction, but she was very involved in a number of people-related activities and institutions within her area. Her mission, in fact, improved the lives of people from all walks of life within the parish and even the island as a whole. In pursuing these areas, Mr. Speaker, she played active role in agriculture and in fact became the first female president of the Jamaica Agricultural Society. And she also was very active in the 4-H movement, and of course in the field of education is perhaps what she's best known in the parish of St. James and certainly in the areas in Somerton and Dumfries and the areas surrounding that. Her impactful contribution, in fact, Mr. Speaker, was felt by all, and even now, 22 years after she retired from this honorable house, her name still rings in the constituency that I have the distinction of representing for the last 22 years. And it is for all of us a great sense of pride for the work that she has done, and her legacy lives on. Mr. Speaker, it is to be noted that this grateful nation also recognized not just her value and worth in this house, but to the extent that in 2004, she was conferred the Order of Distinction in the Commander class for her outstanding contribution to education, agriculture, and community services. As per required, and indeed it is accepted by way of the protocols involved in according special recognition to members who have served in this honorable house and who have been ministers of government and prime ministers and leaders of state. I'm pleased to advise that the cabinet yesterday approved an official funeral for the Honorable Violet Nielsen to be held on the 8th of July, 2024. I want to make a very special and personal comment, Mr. Speaker, with regards to her family. You know, her daughter, Jacqueline, and her brother, and all the family that have been so close and so closely knit together in Somerton. And I want to say to Caswell and to Ellen, who brought her into this world, although they are now in heaven as well, looking down as she is and hearing even these tributes to her, that they too would have in their own way, wherever they are, be proud that they produced a daughter that has contributed so much and so well to the development of this beautiful island of Jamaica. May her soul rest in peace and light perpetual shine on her.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join with the House Leader in recognizing the life of the late Violet Nielsen, a lady of tremendous abilities, a lady who I recall when I first got here, and we were debating earlier, the duration of time that she was Speaker, but in fact it was 1997 to 2002. And I recall her to be a very stern speaker. And even though she was on the government side, none of us could form fool with her because she was very strict and impartial in the very strictest sense of that word. Mr. Speaker, she served for 3 terms, and her contribution was quite tremendous. But as the leader of government business has noted, prior to that, she was an educator. So she was responsible for the training of young minds. And sometimes we don't give enough credence to the role of our teachers in our society. I'm just coming from a graduation function, having gone to a graduation function 2 days before and have a few more to go this season. And it's just amazing when you see how hard our teachers work to get our children's performing at a certain level. Mr. Speaker, again, I don't need to repeat what the House Leader has said in relation to her family. Sometimes it is the family that really keeps us going, both when we're active here, but afterwards. And I want to bring to the attention of this House this issue of Alzheimer's and dementia, because increasingly, worldwide, our elderly people who have served are coming down with this disease, and it seems much more frequently than even before. And I think we, through the Ministry of Health, has to be engaged in greater public awareness and education about Alzheimer's. Our people do need to understand how to care for people with Alzheimer's, and more importantly, to see how we can anticipate such a disease. So, as I'm told, there are things that can be done to prevent the worst effects of it. We urge that those who are engaged in research now will expedite those research, because it's really unfortunate that having lived hard, worked hard, served hard, for you to end in this way, where you are unaware of much of what is happening around you, and the tremendous strain on the family who continue to give support. So today I want to pay tribute to Violet as a nation builder, somebody who was a stern and loyal comrade and who has worked hard to build her party and to create history as the first female speaker of this chamber. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I too would like to join in the tribute to former member, former speaker, Honorable Violet Nielsen. When I entered this House first in 1993, the deceased, well, the Member of Parliament, as she was then, was a very active Member of Parliament. I remember Violet Nielsen because she distinguished herself among her members because of her very quiet but firm persona. She was someone who was approachable, but was very firm in the ways that teachers, or former teachers, can be, which is to present a very unassuming, disarming personality, but very, very firm. And I remember when she rose to the position of Speaker of the House. And was a very proud moment indeed, because it wasn't lost on us that this was a historic occasion. Everyone recognized that the glass ceiling was being broken, shattered indeed, and that we all felt that this was the right person to do it because she was well-suited, well-equipped to handle the task. And she did. She distinguished herself very well. She was a very firm, very fair, very balanced speaker. And those on the side of the government side was of no illusion about having to toe the line and to work within the standing orders and to be respectful and to be very, very compliant with the rules of the House. So her fairness was not questioned. Her empathy was not questioned. She counseled the younger members as they came in. She made time for them, and she was a very good manager of the House, and very effective. It was a period in which tremendous legislation was passed. Great deal of legislation was passed in that period, and she conducted herself with such aplomb and such balance. But my contribution simply was that one of the things we knew about her is that she was an astute politician, very astute. And you had to be, because anyone who could be termed the first campaign manager for P.J. Patterson would be somebody special. And she was. And that started back in Somerton, in high school, in the Somerton primary school, Somerton Primary School, when P.J. Patterson, perhaps I believe it was his first election, but Violet Nielsen was a campaign manager. And everyone in the People's National Party knew that and knew of the connection with P.J. Patterson that remains up until today. And the skills, the early signs of her mastery, her interest, and her skills were demonstrated. And so we knew that, and we knew her fondly. Our relationship was a very warm one. Her role in the executive was marked as well because of her knowledge, the knowledge she brought with her from the education system. So I want to, on this occasion, to again acknowledge the family members who we know it's a difficult period, very difficult period. It was a close-knit family, as I recall, and I'm sure that the loss, however long the illness, the loss of Miss Vi, or Tony, as she was affectionately known, but not by all of us. Not every one of us could call her Tony. It was just, that was reserved for the senior persons in the party who knew her and knew her well. But I want to reach out to and give her my own commendation, my own condolence to the family members, and to say to them that they have every reason to be proud of the role, the sacrifices, the commitment that Ms. Nielsen demonstrated, as both as a member of Parliament and I'm sure as a parent as well. And Jamaica should recall her stellar service. The Parliament should recall the stellar service that she performed, not only for the Parliament, but for Jamaica, for the people of Somerton and St. James in particular. And we mourn her loss, and to say to her, walk good, Comrade Violet Nielsen, and to say, may her soul rest in peace and light perpetual shine upon her.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to add a few brief words on this occasion where we are honoring the memory of Violet Nielsen. I was not in Parliament when she was in Parliament. In fact, I really only met her once, which was last November, I believe it was, when I was visiting East Central St. James, and I stopped by her house to pay homage to the former MP. I think she served 3 terms in the seat. And she was there, she came out. I met this tall, elegant lady, and she was extremely dignified. And though her family had indicated that, you know, her memory wasn't always as strong as it had been, while I was there, she was very lucid, and we had a very enjoyable visit. And, you know, her place in the history of this parliament, and indeed in the political history of Jamaica, is permanently established by virtue of her having been the first female Speaker of this House. And I happened to be in Somerton on Saturday night for a divisional conference, and we honored her memory at that conference, and much love was expressed for former MP and comrade Violet Nielsen. She was a wonderful lady by all accounts. We've heard that as Speaker of the House, she was impartial. She was equally assertive in ensuring that the members on the government side complied with the standards of behavior that are expected of the House for it to function efficiently and with due decorum, as she was in keeping the opposition to heel as well, on the same principles, on the same basis, which is the way it should be. So I will just close by saying I know that our former party leader and indeed the longest serving Prime Minister of Jamaica, Most Honorable P.J. Patterson, felt her passing very deeply. He has said so to me. He had attended primary school with her, and when she died, he messaged me to tell me how much he felt it and what a wonderful person she was and how far back they went as initially schoolmates, and later on, as we've heard from the member for Western St. Andrew, she was his first campaign manager. That was not something I was aware of, but that is another fascinating detail of her life. So, Mr. Speaker, we honor the memory of a great Jamaican, a great patriot, a great parliamentarian, and a wonderful lady, Violet Nielsen.
Mr. Speaker, I also rise to add my words of condolences and to speak about the life, work, and worth of the Honorable Violet Nielsen. I do so mindful that we have today the largest number of women in the Parliament that we have ever had. And so to be able to stand and pay homage to the first female speaker is indeed an important thing to do. I am also just listening, Mr. Speaker, to how Ms. Vi was viewed as a speaker made me smile for a moment, especially at a time when we are also talking about the role of a speaker in terms of being fair, just, impartial, and effective. To be able to honor a woman who, as far back as when she became speaker in 1997, when it was not, she understood the assignment, and it was a time when it might not have been expected of her. So I believe that all of us as women and as parliamentarians would stand proud today of the legacy that she has left behind. Mr. Speaker, what is also very clear, I met her once or twice, but did not know her well. But the truth is that everyone who was a part of the People's National Party during those times would know of her. Quiet, dignified woman, comrade in the People's National Party, and one who has left a trail of good works for many of us to follow. Mr. Speaker, as I end, I simply want to also pay tribute to her family. As, I always speak about this, that as individuals in the politics, our family probably makes the greatest sacrifice for the work that we do, although it's not a decision that they have made. But they give so much personally that I believe that every time we speak on their behalf, we must pay homage to the family. And so, as others have said, may her soul rest in peace, light perpetually shine upon her, and may her family be comforted by knowing that her work was not in vain and that her work has left an indelible mark on many of us who are left behind. Walk good, comrade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I join my colleagues in expressing my own sympathies on the passing of a former colleague and Speaker of this House. I had the privilege of being here during her own old tenure and that of her speakership. She brought quite a bit of decorum to the chair that you happen to sit in now, Mr. Speaker. She recognized that we were all colleagues in this House, regardless of which side we happen to sit. And she also recognized that she's an umpire and ought to be so without bias in order to preserve the integrity of the chair and the integrity of this House. She was quite quiet, calm, but if you get under her skin, she will let you know in no uncertain term that you got there, but in a dignified way. That is a rich legacy which I believe all in this House, not only speakers, but members all, should seek to emulate. She was a great comforter to us all in trying times and in difficult times, with that calm demeanor that she had. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, she has made a lasting impact on us who served with her. And I have no doubt that the member from East Central, St. James, who would have dwelled in that vicinity, can attest to my testimony here this afternoon. I missed your presentation, but I will surely make myself become aware of it. Mr. Speaker, may her soul rest in peace and light shines perpetually on her. Thank you.
Our political landscape is today poor with the passing of a trailblazer, Violet Nielsen. A woman of first, as stated earlier. She was the first woman Speaker of the House of Representatives and the first woman President of the Jamaica Agricultural Society. Violet Nielsen made history with her distinguished service from 1989 to 2002, where her firm yet fair leadership, integrity, and tireless advocacy of parliamentary democracy set a benchmark in Jamaican politics. Throughout her political career, she exemplified the highest standards of public service. She was known for her steadfast dedication to her constituents and community. Her pioneering spirit and contributions to the nation have paved the way for many who have followed in her footsteps, leaving behind a legacy of service, dedication, and unwavering commitment to the people of Jamaica. Beyond the halls of the Parliament, her community involvement remained Mrs. Nielsen's passion, especially her involvement in our church. As we mourn her passing, we celebrate the marks that she made. She has left on our country, inspiring future generations in the pursuit of just and equitable society. At this time, we will stand in recognition of a moment of silence for the life and the journey of Ms. Nielsen. Please be seated. May her soul rest in peace. Announcements?
Speaker, further to my earlier comment as we started this sitting of this Honourable House, I beg to reaffirm the motion that the items on the agenda leading up to public business be now suspended so as to allow the continuation of the sectoral debate. And today, the speakers will be the Minister of Gender, Culture, Sports and Entertainment, and Member of Parliament for St. Catherine Central, the Honourable Olivia Grange. And she will be followed by the member from Eastern St. Catherine, the long-standing serving member of Parliament for that very important part of St. Catherine, Ms. Denise Daley. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Please make welcome for the sectoral debate the Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports, Deputy House Leader and Member of St. Catherine Central.
Mr. Speaker, welcome to the chair. One day bushel, still a bushel. So, Mr. Speaker, this year I begin my contribution to the sectoral debate with grateful acknowledgement of the people who make it possible for me to stand here today. My constituents of Central St. Catherine, some of whom are in the gallery. I'm humbled by the privilege to represent, to work for, and to work with the people of Central St. Catherine, the heart of which is Spanish Town. We have been on a mission to transform lives and build communities. And we have come a long way and have achieved remarkable success. Mr. Mr. Speaker, when I look at the physical and social development that has taken place, I'm proud to say that Central St. Catherine is not the same place as when we started this journey together in 1997. It is the investments in education, in skills development, in welfare assistance, in small business development, in infrastructure development, and the partnerships with the resident, the security forces, community groups, businesses, churches, schools, everyone, old and young, that laid the foundation for the transformation of gritty communities into models of peace, safety, and security. Mr. Speaker, Central St. Catherine is the home of our Prime Minister, born and bred in Spanish Town. And we are extremely proud of him. So the old reputation for violence and destruction has changed and continues to change. Today, Central St. Catherine is building a fine reputation as a place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. We are one family. We work as a team. And I set an example of which they follow. Just last week, I had the honor of participating in the opening of the multi-billion-dollar residential and commercial development called New Brunswick Village. It is a most impressive development that symbolizes how much things have improved in the constituency and the confidence that investors have in the national economy, built stronger by this Andrew Holness administration. None of this happened overnight or by accident. It required us to be deliberate about development. And that means doing all these things, articulating a clear vision of a better life for all, obtaining the buy-in and support of stakeholders, constructing a doable plan, and taking the required steps to make the vision a reality. Being deliberate about development is about recognizing the areas in which our people have competitive and strategic advantage, developing the policies and programs to promote those areas, and being steadfast in the face of challenges. It is about making bold, ambitious, beneficial, strategic, and impactful decisions and actions towards our purpose of building prosperity for all. At its core, Mr. Speaker, deliberate about development is understanding, as former Prime Minister Hugh Shearer taught us. He said, we cannot allow the future of our country to happen by accident. If we content ourselves to sit back and relax and allow time and the luck of fortune to attend to our problems and build Jamaica's future, we will stop just where we are and begin a quick reverse into the mire of our distant past. Deliberate about development is knowing that our future depends on service and hard work. So, Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to be led by a leader who is deliberate about development. This Prime Minister does not shy away from the challenges. He doesn't kick the can of difficult decisions down the road for some future government to address. This Prime Minister doesn't only dream of a new Jamaica. He actively and he deliberately works to build a new Jamaica with justice, liberty, and prosperity for all. Big up to the Prime Minister. So I thank the Most Honorable Andrew Michael Holness for his leadership, and for his confidence in me. I continue to pray for God's guidance in all he does for our blessed homeland. Today, I report to this House and the nation on our deliberate actions to set things right for culture, gender, entertainment, and sport as part of a new Jamaica. I thank my colleagues in the Cabinet, as well as Madam Speaker and the members of this House for your support and friendship. Sometimes we allow the impression to be given that we are rabid partisans or unfriendly towards each other. But the truth is that we have been able to work across the aisle in the interests of our country. There will always be differences, but we mustn't allow them to harden into anger and disrespect. And there is a trend, particularly on social media, by some. But I'm depending on my colleagues across the aisle to work with us to set an example. So, as the mother of the house, and someone who was a political prisoner, who was exiled from this country, I've been through the fire. That is why I'm concerned about some of what I hear and see in our political discourse.
And no apology.
Today I say, let us choose to act in a spirit of goodwill and respect for one another. I express my appreciation to my permanent secretaries, and I'm the only minister with 2 permanent secretaries. I always say, I have 2 men in my life in the ministry. Permanent secretaries Denzel Thorpe and Dinoy Bernard. I want to also express my appreciation to members of the various boards of management and the entire team across the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports, its departments, its agencies, and advisory bodies. I pay tribute to the stakeholders across the portfolio for their support, comments, and criticisms, which has helped us to deliver on our purpose. And I give thanks for my counselors and management team, assistants, drivers, and close protection officers. And of course, please allow me to say a special word of thanks to my family who stand with me through it all. They have been my rock through the long days and late nights, especially my daughter, Paula. I love you. I want to use the opportunity at this time to acknowledge, special acknowledgement to the head boy and head girl of Spanish Town High. The head boy, Malik Walker, and the deputy head boy, David Blake. I also want to use the opportunity to express my condolences to the family of former Speaker Violet Nielsen and join in all the various tributes made earlier by members of the House. I recall her being a very strict speaker who would insist on members of Parliament being appropriately dressed. I had an encounter with her myself because of my mode of dress. For the first time in the history of Parliament, I wore pants. That's right. Parliamentarians, women parliamentarians, female parliamentarians must be appropriately dressed in a dress. The men must wear pants and the women wear dress. Well, of course, me big and bold, decided I would go and get a fantastic Ralph Lauren suit and appear in Parliament. Well, of course, I was told that the Speaker is going to tell me to go sit in the well. So, of course, she kept looking at me and I kept looking away until the end of the sitting. After which she called me and she said, I didn't want to embarrass you by calling your name, but wearing pants in the house is not an appropriate dress. Well, after that, we proceeded to change the standing orders to make sure. So, all the women who are wearing pants today, right? I paved the way. As I say, you know, it's not just the man who wears the pants. So, I move on to speak. In building the new Jamaica, our government has deliberately chosen to focus on developing the infrastructure across the country among our key deliverables. In my ministry, this has meant developing new facilities, rehabilitating aging ones, and repurposing others. I'm determined to present to the nation a redeveloped national stadium, a world-class facility that meets the regulatory requirements of international sports federations, among the deliverables of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. When this administration returned to office, we examined every asset in Independence Park, the home of the National Stadium, and we came up with an ambitious program of redevelopment which has seen us resurface the running tracks. That beautiful blue track was done by us. We upgraded the aquatic center. We upgraded the basketball and Leela Robinson netball courts, among other improvements, including the establishment of monuments to our track heroes, Usain Bolt, Shelley Fraser Price, Veronica Campbell-Brown, and Asafo Powell, primarily funded through the Sports Development Foundation. The main stadium facility is a special and expensive project that requires a different approach to development. In this regard, we went through the necessary processes established by the Public Investment Management Committee, which approved our concept for the redevelopment, which was cost at $100 million US. I give thanks to our development-minded Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and the Public Service, who give constant support as we seek to redevelop this 62-year-old national stadium that has served us well, but whose features are now obsolete, unable to be upgraded, and will pose a challenge to normal operations, as the recent challenge with lighting demonstrated. And I want to use the opportunity to say to my shadows on the opposite side, let's not politicize sports. Let's not politicize it. You don't have to go and stand up in the middle of a stadium or a facility and go on social media to blame and point finger. Sports and culture is something that unites. It does not divide. So the newcomers who are trying that, let it go. Let it go. Let it go. With the agreement of the Honorable Minister of Finance and the Public Service, I now want to make the following announcement. The government of Jamaica, acting through the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, recently signed a framework for cooperation with the government of the United Kingdom, acting through UK Export Finance. The framework establishes a basis for both sides to collaborate and cooperate for the purpose of financing projects in Jamaica involving exports from the United Kingdom for the purposes of achieving the economic development objectives of Jamaica. Among the priority projects listed to be addressed in this framework is the redevelopment of the National Stadium. Through this framework, a team of architects and project managers from the UK held discussions with my team at the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport and sent us a proposal for the renovation and redevelopment of facilities at Independence Park, particularly the National Stadium. The document, Mr. Speaker, in essence, proposes to not only address the shortcomings of the existing stadium, but also to identify through qualitative and quantitative assessment the full potential of this iconic stadium through its enhancement as a major tournament venue, training center, and visitor attraction to promote Jamaica and Jamaican sporting talent. So, Mr. Speaker, we considered the proposal. We looked at it carefully. And this proposal has the development of the Sports Museum in its scope, and we accepted it. We have communicated our decision to the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, which will now finalize the funding agreement and release funds in short order to begin phase 1 of the development, which is the Stadium Assessment Feasibility Study. So, Mr. Speaker, we are deliberately establishing a world-class stadium for our world-class athletes and entertainers. And we are targeting to break ground no later than August 2025. I wish my colleagues over there would applaud. The stadium is for all of us. For all of us. And I know that the former Minister of Sports on that side, I know she's happy about it. She has a wide grin. Right. So we have also asked the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service to provide special funding in the interim in the amount of 75 million Jamaican dollars for urgent remedial work at the National Stadium to address the lighting infrastructure. This remedial work must be completed by September of this year for the stadium to meet the FIFA requirements for international matches that are scheduled to be played at the office in the 2nd and 3rd week of September. Yes. Yes. I also have exciting developments regarding the Trelawney Stadium to report. There is a rumor that goats and cows and everything, but that is not true. This government is determined to exploit the full potential of Trelawney Stadium for the benefit of the Jamaican people. And I must tell you, that facility was incomplete when it was built. Yes, it was. In fact, we were given a stadium for the opening ceremony of the World Cup, but that stadium ended up in Slagoville. And then we borrowed money. We borrowed money, bought the land in Trelawney, and borrowed money to build the stadium. The Ministry of Finance has shown me $500 million still owed. Still owed. And this is not, I'm not being political here. It's just the facts. Just the facts. No, but it is a fact. It is a fact. The stadium is incomplete, and it was built only for the ceremony, the opening ceremony. So in this regard, we can provide the information, all right? We can. You know I don't throw stones. I speak facts. You know that. All right. We're not throwing a car and we're not calling a foul, right? Now, I really have great news. We have been in discussion about a $550 million development at the facility. This venture is driven by private equity and not public funding. The investors propose to transform Trelawney into a high-performance sports complex that can accommodate 21 sports disciplines, host international games, award ceremonies, and serve as training grounds. This sports tourism development also proposes the construction of high-rise condominiums and a hotel. The discussions about this exciting development are going well, and I look forward to making the announcements as we sign off on the arrangement. In the meantime, we continue to make Trelawney Stadium available for a range of activities. So far this year, the stadium has hosted cricket tournament matches, it has hosted parties, it has hosted the Jamaica Youth Festival and church services. Later this year, it is scheduled to host the Trelawney Football Association finals and the Sandals Annual Fun Day, among other entertainment events. And last year, one of the events that were hosted there hosted 15,000 young people from across the region at the Seventh-day Adventist Camporee. And so the facility is being used. And I want everyone to know that and appreciate the fact that it is being used in spite of its shortcomings. So we are deliberate about development. The government continues to invest heavily in national, community, and school sport, welfare, coaching, and the development of facilities. Indeed, in the last calendar year, the Sports Development Foundation invested $515 million Jamaican dollars, more than $500 million, on programs and initiatives that reached every corner of Jamaica, from community sports to the elite level. From building sports facilities in underserved areas to supporting local tournaments and leagues. The Sports Development Foundation worked hand in hand with over 40 sports federations, agencies, and communities to harness the power of sports for social and economic development. Yes, we are deliberate about development. We have taken steps to address the issue of night noise and the insufficiency of entertainment venues by repurposing heritage sites into entertainment venues. In this regard, we carried out extensive rehabilitation and upgrade of the Civil Heritage Park in St. Anne, which is now available for use for a variety of events. And as you all know, Civil Heritage Park is where the four cultures meet: Taino, the African, the Spanish, and the English. And we also, on July 31, we have the reenactment of the abolition of slavery when the proclamation was read. So that's a very important heritage site. And it's now available, upgraded and available for events, various events of all types. We're also breathing life back into Fort Rocky. And I know that the Member of Parliament for East Kingston and Port Royal will be very happy about this. So in building the venue, we had to conduct an ecological assessment of the site, which caused a delay, and as well as a survey of flora and fauna and a study of sound and light. So this venue is available, but the build-out was delayed because we had to do this. NEPA demanded that this be done. So these have been critical in determining the type of entertainment activities that should take place at Fort Rocky, considering potential effects on residents, aviation, and sensitive ecological resources in the area. So we are now aware that changes in light or noise in an ecosystem may have an impact, not only on the functions of individual species, but the overall function of the ecosystem and, you know, the turtles nest in the area. And so we had to, and in fact, when they come on land and they nest, they use the moon as their light to go back to sea. So we have to design the light and the sound in a specific way to use that venue. So we have been deliberately careful and sensitive in its development. So I want to report to the House that based on the findings on the environmental assessment, Fort Rocky is suitable for the purpose intended with careful environmental and ecological monitoring. So this year, we will proceed to build out the parking lots and the viewing decks at Fort Rocky, and it is really going to be a beautiful site. Again, I want to repeat, we are deliberate about development. We are positioning Jam World to become the first operational 24-hour venue. We have done site clearing, repairs and other works to make Jam World suitable for events. We have also completed the surveyor's ID report, which is a foundation for architectural drawings, topographical map, and development plan for Jam World, which we expect to complete this year, as well as the perimeter fence to secure the property. And of course, people go there to learn to drive and all of that. So I'm just warning that we are going to monetize that activity in the meantime. And I really want to use the opportunity to commend the Member of Parliament for South East St. Catherine, who persevered, who pushed, who called me, even in the middle of the night, to get this project going. Yes. Yeah? No, not backward. That's a different project. But what's interesting, we're also in discussion a public-private partnership in developing a section of Jam World as a TV and film soundstage facility. So in addition to film and television soundstage production taking place at Jam World, we will have a built-out facility for entertainment and sports. The proposal calls for the development of multiple production stages, a virtual production and gaming stage, post-production facilities, and a mill, among other facilities. So we are looking closely at that proposal and hope to finalize those arrangements soon. Our potential partner anticipates the completion of the topographical map to develop a detailed design plan and move our discussions forward. Now, Mr. Speaker, prior to this administration, there were no state-run shelters for women wishing to leave violent relationships. We know it's difficult for some women to leave. Yes. And the reasons are many and complex. They have nowhere to go. They have no jobs. So many reasons. But because we are deliberate about development, we put in the systems to help women leave violent men and to restart their lives. To date, we have established and are operating 2 shelters for victims of domestic violence. They are safe, they are well secured and equipped to cater to women and their children. The environment is therapeutic. We have counselors. We offer legal services. We have trainers who have developed various programs to help women earn and become financially independent. Women in one shelter are earning from a strawberry farm that they have established, while others are earning from jewelry making and other skills that they have learned since leaving their abusive situation. These shelters, established with the help of the European Union, UNFPA, and UN Women, among others, provide hope for a better life. So we are currently developing a 3rd shelter. The construction phase is ongoing, and work is projected to be completed by the end of this financial year. Any of us could become a victim of domestic violence. Anybody, any one of us. Yeah. But none of us should stay in that situation. And help is now available. So, my sisters, take that step. Call or text us on 876-553-0372 or 876-236-1713. We will help. And I can tell you, the calls have come. And the calls have come from women from all walks of life and profession. Connected to the National Shelter Strategy is the deliberate development of domestic violence intervention centers at police stations across the island through the support of the Spotlight Initiative. And I want to congratulate the JCF on the splendid job that they are doing. We have expanded the reach of the Women's Center of Jamaica Foundation by rehabilitating and establishing new facilities at Santa Cruz, St. Elizabeth, and Mandeville, Manchester. And I just want to expand a little on the Women's Center, the work of the Women's Center. It's over 40 years old. And there are young girls who have been abused. There are young girls who have just been experimenting. We have had an 11-year-old pregnant by her grandfather. Yes. And we have had 14-year-olds having twins. This is an excellent program. And the Member of Parliament from East Kingston and Port Royal is one of those who have supported the center. And we are grateful for the support. So we have good news, however, more good news. We are working with the Factories Corporation of Jamaica on improving our facilities in St. Thomas as part of the government's deliberate development plan for the parish. The center in Morant Bay, they have a nursery and they conduct classes in the same building. And when the young mothers hear their babies crying in the nursery, it distracts them. They want to go to the babies. And so we will now be able to have a standalone nursery through the support and efforts of the Prime Minister and Factories Corporation. But not only that, Prime Minister and Factories Corporation have promised us that they will build a dormitory so that some of these young girls who can't go back home will have somewhere to stay. But more news, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance has promised us to fund a dormitory at the headquarters in Kingston. So, you know, it is a good feeling, a very good feeling, a good government, good government. So, we have also put in infrastructure to improve the delivery of virtual CSCC classes, CSEC classes, in rural areas. So the Women's Center now, in its 45th year, has been a lifeline to thousands of adolescent mothers for whom it has provided a second chance while helping to reduce the adolescent birth rates. And the program has done well. And you know, this lady, she doesn't mind us mentioning. The head of the Bureau of Gender Affairs, Mrs. Sharon Coburn Robinson, was one of the first graduates of that program. And no, she is in charge of the gender machinery in Jamaica. And I just want to mention that the longest serving chair of the Women's Center Foundation program was Princess Laws, the late Princess Laws. She died recently, but she made her mark when she chaired that organization. And I am proud to say that the Organization of American States, in renaming their Hall of Fame, Hall of Heroes and Heroines, have requested a photograph of Princess Laws to be placed in the Hall of Heroines until a painting is done of her. And you know, Princess is being recognized for the contribution she made to the OAS, and the being 50 years since Jamaica joined the SIM program, and in that connection, Princess Laws was very instrumental and was the first Anglo-Caribbean president of SIM. So, Mr. Speaker, we have received funding to rehabilitate the 19th century seawall that protects the historic Naval Hospital in Port Royal from storm surges and maritime traffic. The extent of deterioration of the seawall was revealed in a Heritage Impact Assessment study conducted in 2022. And we were concerned that further deterioration could affect the integrity of the sunken city in Port Royal. So we sought international assistance through UNESCO to address the deterioration, and the Netherlands Funds in Trust has responded. We are finalizing the arrangement and hope to begin the project by September. We expect that this project will build our capacity to conserve and maintain the submerged city, which is the subject of our nomination to the World Heritage List, titled The Archaeological Landscape of 17th Century Port Royal. Our nomination is now at the final stage of the evaluation process, and we anticipate, Mr. Speaker, a favorable decision by March of next year. So Port Royal will be further enhanced further enhanced by these two developments. Port Royal is synonymous with Jamaica, but its significance stretches way beyond our shores. It was the port where enslaved Africans were sold and shipped to plantations in other English-speaking colonies and the Spanish Main. The trading Africans became a significant source of Port Royal's wealth. The town, once the enclave of pirates, grew to become the most important trading post and the most affluent town in the New World. It became known as both the richest and the wickedest city in the West, if not in the world. At the height of its immense wealth in the 17th century, disaster struck. On June 7, 1692, an earthquake caused 2/3 of Port Royal to sink into the sea. And remarkably, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, 332 years now, it is a well-preserved site that captures life as it was being lived in Port Royal at the time. We have divers, we have trained 12 divers, 6 of whom are women. And recently, we conducted underwater expedition led for the first time by a Jamaican team. And they went underwater. The city is still standing. Still standing. So what we are doing now, we are clearing the silt. Because we have plans. It will become one of the biggest tourist attractions in this part of the world when we are able to have persons look at the underwater city. Interestingly enough, about 4 weeks ago, we had a request from Adidas, the head of Adidas. They were coming to Jamaica, and they wanted to dive to go see the sunken city. We don't normally give permission for that. We don't normally, because we are protecting the site. But we gave permission, and they were accompanied by our divers. And they went and viewed the underwater city. So we really have something good going there, and we're going to make sure it works for us. I see the Member of Parliament nodding his head. You can't complain. You can't complain. So for us, this is a historic site of memory which must be preserved for all of humanity. The inscription of the sunken city to the World Heritage List, added to the development of the cruise ship pier, would seriously enhance Jamaica's culture and heritage tourism product. This would be further enhanced by development works to be undertaken over the next 5 years at the Rockfort Mineral Bath under a new license agreement with Carib Cement. The works will include enhancement of the baths, installation of accessories, and the establishment of a robust security presence to ensure health and safety of visitors. Carib Cement assured us that some renovations will be completed within the next 6 months, which will make the facility, they're talking to you? All right, I will ensure. I always make sure they talk to the Member of Parliament. So, so they have assured us
Mr. Speaker, the member's time having been expired, I beg to move that her time be extended sufficiently to allow her to conclude her presentation. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion on the table is for the member time to be extended sufficiently for her to finish her presentation. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So as I said, the facility will be available for use sections of it within the next 6 months. And Jamaicans old and young, I know they have great faith in the healing stream of our mineral baths. So this will ultimately reposition Rockfort Mineral Bath among the list of culture, heritage, health, and tourism attractions of Greater Kingston and Port Royal, adding to the attraction of the redevelopment of downtown. So, Mr. Speaker, we're deliberate about development. We have sought to introduce them to amend legislation to protect people's rights. With the approval of the entire House, we passed the Sexual Harassment Protection and Prevention Act and brought it into operation on July 3, 2023. It is a game-changing piece of legislation that will provide relief for those enduring the harmful effects of sexual harassment and hopefully cause a culture change. Under the law, all workplaces and institutions must have their sexual harassment policy in place by the end of this month. All workplaces must have their sexual harassment policy in place by the end of this month. The policy must be brought to the attention of each worker, client, student, resident, ward, inmate, patient, or member, as the case may require, because it also includes landlord, accommodations, churches, institutions, and so on. Any workplace or institution that fails to implement such a policy, which should outline a process for reporting and resolving a complaint of sexual harassment, could face sanctions. So, we are almost at the end of June. And I'm asking members of Parliament to reach out and to ensure that business places in your constituencies become compliant. So the law provides for the establishment of the Sexual Harassment Tribunal to hear and determine complaints and to make awards. Today, I announce the members of the tribunal who have all met the fit and proper eligibility requirements specified in the Act. They had to go through a process. And yesterday we received the letter from the Ministry of National Security indicating that all nominees are now considered fit and proper. So I want to announce the names. The chairman of the tribunal is Mr. Ferdinand Smith, former Justice of the Appeal Court. The deputy, there are two deputies, Attorney at Law Mrs. Karen Campbell-Basco and Attorney at Law Ms. Indira Prasad. The other members are Dr. Merrick Dale Walker, Mr. Donald Roberts, Danny Roberts, Mrs. Debbie Ann Brown Salmon, Mrs. Karen Thompson Wilson, Mrs. Janetta Richard Smichael, Ms. Camille Lee, Mr. Kevel Campbell, Ms. Kadria Shari, Ms. Shanique Rose Clacken, Mr. Junior Latibadir, Ms. Claire Pamela Miller, and Mr. Devon Dick, Reverend Devon Dick. So it has been a necessary, detailed, and carefully executed process of evaluation of the members. We already fully staffed the Sexual Harassment Investigation Unit, which will give support to the operation of the tribunal. And we have identified the space to house the tribunal and the Sexual Harassment Unit by acquiring additional space where the ministry is located. The company that was occupying half the building have moved out, and we have taken over the space. We're also deliberately strengthening the Domestic Violence Act. The Domestic Violence Act 2023 amendments came into effect in January of this year. The amendments, among other things, allow the court to issue protection orders and impose a penalty of up to $1 million Jamaican dollars for a breach and a sentence of up to 1 year in prison. We continue to improve our services to victims, punish perpetrators, and review our laws to create effective deterrents to would-be perpetrators. And in this regard, a joint select committee is reviewing the Domestic Violence Act towards further strengthening the protection of victims and dealing appropriately with perpetrators. Maybe at the end of it all, we may have a new act, but we certainly will have an act that will ensure that there is full protection for those who may suffer domestic violence. Now, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport continues to work towards the repatriation of artifacts that were taken from Jamaica by the British and housed in museums and universities in the United Kingdom. The negotiation for the return of many of these artifacts, including a whole repository of artifacts from the Taínos, is ongoing. But recently, we celebrated the repatriation of the giant galley-wasp through a collaborative effort involving the University of the West Indies, the Institute of Jamaica, and the University of Glasgow, Scotland. The repatriated Jamaican giant galley-wasp was thought to have been collected in the 1850s and became part of the University of Glasgow collections in 1888. The specimen called Celeste was transferred from the zoology collections of the University of Glasgow to the University of the West Indies, which, recognizing the national importance of the specimen, has deposited it in the National Faunal Collections at the National History Museum of Jamaica on permanent loan. Permanent loan. We get it back. We get it back. The IOJ is also now in possession of a motor car featured in the Bob Marley One Love movie. The 1973 blue BMW E was used in the film as a replica of Marley's motor car, and the vehicle was donated to Jamaica by the film and television production and distribution company Paramount Pictures Corporation as a goodwill gesture. And the public will be able to view the vehicle as part of an exhibition. Through deliberate actions, there has been some progress towards reparations. Notable among them was a visit to Jamaica in April 2024 of a delegation from churches in the United Kingdom, during which the United Reformed Church apologized to the people of Jamaica for its role in transatlantic slave. I reiterate my call on other churches in the UK, especially those who sent representatives to Jamaica, to witness this historic apology, to signal to their government that the Christian thing to do is to admit culpability, apologize to us, and to engage with us to determine the various forms that reparations may take. In recent times, we have been approached by descendants of enslavers who say they wish to apologize for the actions of their ancestors. So today, I want to let you know that we will use Emancipation Jubilee on July 31 at Seville Heritage Park as an occasion for these apologies to be made to the people of Jamaica. And the families will be coming to Jamaica to apologize at the Seville Jubilee for what their foreparents did to our ancestors. Recently, the leader of the opposition sent me a message regarding a complaint he received about issues affecting Rastafari students at a primary school. You was wondering what I was coming with, right? I looked into the matter, and it turns out that 3 students were being barred from sitting end-of-year exams because they had not been vaccinated as required. The parents were unwilling to have the vaccine administered on religious grounds. Thankfully, we were able to resolve the matter between the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and my permanent secretary. So the Minister of Education has such a fantastic team in place that the team knew what she would want and took care of the matter. So the emergency with the unvaccinated students made me realize that there are some matters relating to the Rasta community that need to be addressed. And members of the community have recently sent me a list and asked me to meet with them, and I will be doing so. In fact, you know, I'm glad that God has put this in my hands. Growing up in West Kingston, there was a particular Rasta man who was almost like my guardian angel. I grew up with people around me of all religion. I grew up in the heart above Coronation Market, and I never feared anything. There were churches all around me. Revival Church, Pentecostal. I had to go to every one of them. And I had to go to the Naibingi too. And so I feel that at this particular time, with the issues that affect Rasta, that God has put it in my hands. And God has put the leader, Andrew Michael Holness, to lead a government of which I am a part. This government is deliberate about engaging with and celebrating and setting things right with our Rastafari brothers and sisters. The state did an injustice to Rastafari at Coral Gardens in 1963. And for 54 years, our Rastafari brothers and sisters lived with the physical, psychological, and emotional scars of that incident, and the feeling that successive governments had let them down by not sufficiently acknowledging what they had been through. Yes. Mr. Speaker, it took this Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, to do the right thing by taking responsibility and apologizing for what happened in Coral Gardens in 1963 before he was born. Before he was born. So it took this administration to establish a Coral Gardens Trust Fund in which we have put 100 million Jamaican dollars to pay reparations as part of a broad program of reconciliation with the Rastafari community. Another important step was the posthumous honoring of Leonard Howell, the first Rastaman, with the Order of Distinction as part of Jamaica 60 celebrations. And I have in my office an Empress, the first and only Rasta to be appointed as senator, appointed by the most honorable Edward Philip George Seaga, Barbara Blake Hannam, and she is my cultural liaison in the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport. So we are deliberate about showing honor and pride.
Yes, we are.
Now, the Jamaica Entertainment and Creative Industries Practitioners Insurance Plan, Health and Life, will be launched in a matter of weeks. This game-changing plan will address situations where there is no money to bury a practitioner upon his or her passing, or where some entertainers become ill and are unable to fund the necessary medical treatment out of their pocket. We're all aware of that. So we are establishing an insurance plan, life and health, to take care of our entertainers and our practitioners, cultural practitioners. So I know the need for this insurance, and many practitioners and their families often turn to me as Minister for assistance. I try my best, but this insurance plan will provide a better, more sustainable, and more dignified option. Following a competitive tender process, the contract was awarded to Guardian Life Insurance. We will sign the contract in a matter of weeks. It is our expectation that through this deliberate action, artists and creative practitioners will take advantage of this scheme and so reduce their vulnerability to adversity and death, as has been the current experience. Mr. Speaker, this Thursday, Jamaica's athletes will be in competition at the national senior and junior championships, hoping to make the team for the 2024 Olympic Games in Paris, which begin on July 26. I know the House will join me in sending best wishes to all our athletes who will be on show at the National Stadium. In a bid to encourage athletes, the government will give a sum of $360,000 to each athlete who qualifies for the Olympics to assist with their training and their nutrition. We have also set aside 50 million Jamaican dollars in incentives for members of our national team and the contingent after they have competed at the Olympics and come back home. 50 million Jamaican dollars. So we will use the opportunity of Paris 24 to engage in cultural diplomacy. We will be partnering with the city of Nanterre to stage Jamaica Day on Friday, August 9th, which will culminate with a mega reggae event, a reggae concert, featuring Julian Marley, Skip Marley, and Luciano. And then on August 11, we will partner with the CRC Church in Paris to stage Jamaica Praise featuring Kevin Downswell. So we're hitting Paris by storm. But not only that, we will also take the opportunity to finalize the twinning of the city of Nanterre, France, and Spanish Town. The mayor of Nanterre and the mayor of Spanish Town, who will be going to Paris, will sign a partnership agreement which will see the start of a mutually beneficial partnership between the people of Nanterre and Spanish Town. So, Mayor Scott will be in Paris. Courtesy of. All right, I'm happy to announce that the Jamaica-China Cooperation Program is back on. The 3-year agreement under which 400 Jamaican sports representatives were to receive training in China was interrupted after the first 2 successful years by COVID. In this, the final year of the program, we are sending badminton, women's basketball, women's football, women's volleyball, gymnastics, and swimming teams for 60 days of rigorous training across China. We thank the government of the People's Republic of China for its friendship and support in this regard, and look forward to the improvements in the skill and technique of our athletes. In a deliberate move to develop youth athletes, the government is implementing a nutrition program targeting track and field athletes who participate in the boys and girls champs. We recognize that not all schools have the same resources. The top performing schools have established nutrition programs, while many others struggle to provide the necessary support to athletes. This program will be geared especially towards athletes that need the support most. So by giving them nutrition support, we are investing in their health, their education, and potential to excel. The CPTC, through its training arm, the Media Technology Institute, will embark on recruitment of media, cultural, and creative industries personnel for training through the Prior Learning Assessment and Recognition, PLAR, a new initiative of the Ministry of Education and Youth. PLAR will allow for people who have years of experience but no formal qualifications to be assessed and certified in their areas of expertise, and thereby increasing their economic prospects. And I just want to emphasize that every youth have a little camera. They want to shoot videos, they want to make films, and they also want to sing or dance or do things creative. And so I really want to thank the Ministry of Education for this support, for them to get certification in these areas. So my ministry also facilitated training in the art of Indonesian batik making as part of our Economic Opportunities Program that has been providing training, certification, grants, equipment, and supplies to several communities and groups. The free batik workshops were led by the world-renowned Indonesian fashion designer Indah Daley. The batik training program was undertaken in partnership with the government of Indonesia through its embassy. A total of 85 Jamaicans were trained in Indonesian batik making, with 20 completing the more advanced train the trainer. And it means that we will be able to continue to train other persons. When you come in, you would see the mannequin with the beautiful style batik, right? And we have fabric that has been done by our own Jamaican designers coming out of the training program. So we are targeting to train an additional 40 Jamaicans by the end of this year. And I should mention that this program that we have, we were able to train about approximately 40 persons in Nigerian batik. And also, and these persons were drawn from the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. So, Mr. Speaker, this year the JCDC celebrates 60 years of unearthing, training, developing, and showcasing creative talent of the Jamaican people. 60 years of preserving Jamaica's culture. Most of us, at some stage in our lives, have been impacted by the JCDC, whose network stretches across the length and breadth of Jamaica, the 775 communities across Jamaica. are impacted by the JCDC, which was established by the Most Honorable Edward Seaga. The Festival of the Arts includes drama, speech, dance, traditional, folk, and music, and involves approximately 15,000 participants from parish to national finals, the best of the gold medal winners. Approximately 250 performers are selected for the annual merry-go-round, which is one of the most popular festival events. And this takes place at the Independence Village in the National Stadium Complex between August 1 and August 6. So we launched Jamaica 62 celebrations last Thursday at the Ronnie Williams Entertainment Center and offered a taste of the highly anticipated drone show that will be a highlight of the Grand Gala on Independence Day. The Jamaica Festival Song Competition continues to attract talent, and the televised presentation show of this year's finalists will take place this Thursday, live from the TVJ studios. And the results show will follow on July 13 at the Ronnie Williams Entertainment Center, and that will also be carried live. We have introduced the Jamaica Gospel Star series, which will be live on CVM television for 4 Sundays at 8 p.m. And this will culminate on Sunday, August 4th, with the naming of the 2024 Jamaica Gospel Star. It should be noted that the public will be able to vote for their favorite festival song and gospel star on the Digicel platform, with votes being accepted from both Digicel and Flow networks. And voting can also be done via the Reggae Jamaica mobile app, which will allow those in the diaspora to vote. The Jamaica Festival Queen Coronation will be on Saturday, August 3, and this is another very popular event. But the Grand Gala inside the National Stadium on Tuesday, August 6, begins at 5:30 p.m. and gates will open from 3 o'clock. Patrons can expect the usual fireworks display, mass dances, and the now popular drone show, which will this year feature. Last year we had 300 drones. This year we will have 700 drones. And a special highlight of the gala this year will be a display by the ladies of the Jamaica Constabulary Force as they mark their 75th anniversary of enlistment in the force. We will also recognize the 170th anniversary of the arrival of the Chinese in Jamaica. So, Mr. Speaker, I close. Jamaica is a creative country. You can feel the creativity of our people in every part of this country, not just in museums or galleries or theaters or dance halls. You see, feel, and hear the creativity of the Jamaican people just walking the street and interacting with them. For me, creativity is in the Jamaican DNA. The United Nations Conference on Trade and Development put it well in its 2013 Global Economy Report. They say, creativity is synonymous with Jamaica. Jamaica also has an outstanding reputation in global sports where our representatives continue to punch way above their weight class, particularly in track and field, where we have produced some of the fastest men and women in the world. Of course, we call sports physical culture. However, Jamaica's outsized impact on global culture, entertainment, and sport, achieved with relatively little resources, didn't just happen overnight or by accident. The development of a country does not happen by chance. It happens through service, through hard work, and by being deliberate about development. That is our task, to build a Jamaica that will last and for which future generations will be proud. So let us go forward with confidence, knowing that there is no challenge that we Jamaicans cannot overcome when we work together when we are deliberate about development, as this administration has demonstrated. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I want to thank the Honorable Minister for a very comprehensive and informative report of the implementation of our ministries. I will now turn to the House Leader to
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I just want to reiterate your statement of absolute commendation for perhaps one of the most outstanding presentations by any minister responsible for culture and sports, perhaps in the history of this parliament. It was so comprehensive and in fact loaded with hard facts and also commitment, not promises, commitment. I have a plan for you, don't worry. Mr. Speaker, I would invite you to ask the member from St. Catherine Eastern to make her presentation at this time.
I'll now welcome the member of St. Catherine Eastern, Member Denise Daley, MP, Opposition Spokesperson on Gender Affairs, Persons with Disabilities and Inclusion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I was attempted to say Madam Speaker, but I had to look very careful. Mr. Speaker, I reflected this morning and I decided to start with Proverbs 31, verse 25. She is clothed with strength and dignity, and she laughed without fear of the future. End of quote. Mr. Speaker, it is both an honor and a privilege to be here in this honorable house as a member of Parliament representing a mighty, powerful constituency of St. Catherine Eastern. I am also very proud to shadow the portfolio of gender, persons with disability, and inclusion. Mr. Speaker, I consider myself a servant of the people, and as such, I am grateful for this opportunity to serve our nation and its citizens. I stand before you today with a deep sense of gratitude for the trust placed in me by the people of Eastern St. Catherine and the People's National Party. Our work focuses on collective efforts rather than individual achievements, aiming to create a better future for everyone. I continue to approach this task with dedication, inclusivity, and transparency. Mr. Speaker, I am forever grateful to the Almighty God for His blessings on me. And to my family, I cannot find words to fully express my gratitude. To my support staff, at my constituency, Ms. Hudson, my secretary, Mr. Hall, my driver, my security personnel, Mr. Tennant, Mr. Walker, and all the others who make up my team, a very big thank you. To my constituency in St. Catherine Eastern, without your vote of confidence, I could not be in this honorable house to make this presentation on your behalf. To my councillors, Norman Scott, Keisha Lewis, Enos Lawrence, and Donovan Guy, I want to say thank you for your support. To the staff, yes, he's one of my councillors, and I'm proud of him. To the staff of the Houses of Parliament and to you, and I was going to say, Madam Speaker, but I'm going to ask to convey, and I want to congratulate you because you will be in the answered as one presiding today. That has been tasked, and I wanted to convey to Madam Speaker that she has been tasked with such an important duty in ensuring that justice and equity are demonstrated in this House. I thank my party leader, Mark Jefferson Golding, born and bred Jamaican. A true son of the soil, for giving me the opportunity to speak on this portfolio, which represents the most vulnerable of all Jamaicans. I consider it a privilege to have been given this duty of care. Madam Speaker, before I speak on my portfolio on gender, persons with disabilities, and inclusion, I would like to first acknowledge the new professor at the UWI Mona, Senator Floyd Morris, for his outstanding achievements as a person with a disability. Senator Floyd Morris is an example of what each and every one of us can achieve when we put our hearts and minds to work. Mr. Speaker, this remarkable Jamaican was the first visually impaired member and president of the Senate in Jamaica. He was recently re-elected to the United Nations Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and is now the first visually impaired tenured professor at the University of the West Indies. This is a phenomenal achievement, as it is the first of such appointment in the Caribbean and Latin America. Right. Professor Floyd Morris, I salute you today. Mr. Speaker, no one more than Professor Morris knows that the path to sustainable development of persons with disabilities in the Caribbean is of tremendous importance. And this is the pathway, Mr. Speaker, along which I want to lead up the road to change. Mr. Speaker, these individuals are the most marginalized in society and therefore among the most vulnerable of all Jamaican persons. An estimated 450,000 people with disabilities and still counting live, work, and do business in Jamaica. It is disheartening, Mr. Speaker, for me to learn that marginalization of this population of persons with disabilities continue to rise. Madam Speaker, Mr. Speaker, because of low level of education, poor health outcomes and access, extremely high unemployment, negative and social attitudes towards and stereotyping for these resilient individuals. People with disabilities continue to be at a disadvantage. The time has come in this 21st century to ensure that this cycle be broken. It will take, Mr. Speaker, a deliberate action. Employment and accessibility are fundamental for all Jamaicans, but our population of persons with disabilities are particularly challenged in this regard. Mr. Speaker, we can't be a nation boasting about employment statistics when approximately 90% of the population of persons with disabilities in Jamaica is unemployed. Yes, only 10% of our disabled brothers and sisters who are able to work and have a job. This is extremely alarming. How can they develop a sense of independence and stability? How can these brothers and sisters help their families? Simply put, Mr. Speaker, how must they survive in an already challenging, inequitable environment? On this side, we are embarking on a journey, a road to change. We intend to put our creative and collective thoughts into action to implement ways and means, generate sustainable employment and accessibility for persons with disabilities. We have to help to change the mindset of people who still have negative stereotypes and help them to embrace persons with disabilities within their businesses. Mr. Speaker, persons with disabilities must also get equal pay for equal work done at the workplace. Looking ahead, Mr. Speaker, but not too far ahead, looking into the next People's National Party administration, there will be a non-consented effort to provide opportunities across agriculture, education, manufacturing, and tourism. The cultural and creative innovation and digital industries also provide excellent opportunities for individuals from whom mobility, sight, hearing, and even cognitive processing are a challenge. We must also consider how artificial intelligence will be impact marginalized people, including persons with disabilities. While AI holds promise for improving accessibility and creating new opportunities, we must ensure that it does not fuel existing inequalities. I have spoken with the spokesperson on technology, Proactive, who is the person who is responsible for that, policies to safeguard, to guarantee that AI technologies are designed and deployed in ways that promote inclusivity and protect the rights and dignity of all individuals. Mr. Speaker, now turn to financial empowerment for persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, beyond economic empowerment for people with disabilities, through self-reliance and employment, there is another complex area of concern: it is critical for people with disabilities to be able to manage their finances independently, especially in this time when we all have largely been physically removed from the banking system. We cannot speak about financial empowerment through employment without looking at banking and how financial institutions serve persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, take for instance, so many of us take for granted access to an ATM. It is essential to address the barriers that prevent people with disabilities from using the ATM in a comfortable way. Even with the significant progress in accessibility, there are still, Mr. Speaker, many challenges that persons with disabilities face when using ATMs. ATM accessibility is not only a matter of convenience, but also a matter of human rights and inclusivity, and to ensure safety for persons with disabilities to manage their finances on their own instead of becoming dependent on others. Mr. Speaker, would you believe that some ATMs are located in areas that are physically inaccessible to wheelchair users? The time has come for deliberate actions to be taken to coordinate and manage programs to ensure the implementation of special features for the persons with disabilities. Proper height adjustments for wheelchair users must be done. Large print and eye contrast keypads and machines outfitted to repeat audio instruction or messages. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the matter of transportation for persons with disabilities. Recently, the Minister of Transport announced that 100 buses will be arriving on the island in July 2024. When I inquired about the buses for persons with disabilities and special access features, I read the response from the Minister that stated that a percentage of the buses, these buses in the fleet will accommodate persons with disabilities. Mr. Speaker, I really want more and better particulars. So do the people with disabilities whom I represent. Must we wait for the arrival of these buses before we get words of what to expect? We really have to do better about communicating with our national stakeholders. We look forward to hearing more in a short order, but until then, I will await. Mr. Speaker, what can I speak on without conviction in this? What can I speak on in terms of our commitment and conviction from the People's National Party? We will, and I can say it without any contradiction, we will prioritize disability inclusion in our national development agenda with a focus on promoting accessibility and employment opportunities for persons with disability. We will and strengthen enforcement of existing disability rights legislation, including the Disabilities Act, to ensure that persons with disabilities are protected from discrimination and get equal access to employment, education, and public services. Mr. Speaker, what is really required is coordination, management, and the will to create the programs that will mainstream the necessary integration and demonstrate that the needs of persons with disability is a national priority. This is what we learned from the visionary leadership from the most Honorable Portia Simpson-Miller, who, as Minister of Labour, Social Security and Sport, was instrumental in establishing aspects of the Disabilities Act in her contribution to the 2014-2015 budget debate in the House of Parliament. In the Disabilities Act, Mr. Speaker, we established various provisions that would ensure protection of the rights of persons with disabilities against violation. And, Mr. Speaker, it was our administration that entrenched the Disability Rights Tribunal in law that makes provision for persons with disabilities who are discriminated against. They can go to that entity for redress, and this is at no cost to those that were affected. We are grateful for the pioneering work to protect the rights of persons with disabilities, making it a national priority. We must embrace and never forget the way paved for the protection of persons with disabilities through the passage of legislation that continues to ensure that it is illegal to discriminate against persons with disabilities in any sphere of life. A bold and most commendable action by our former Prime Minister, who also brought attention to the portfolio of gender, to which I now turn. Gender refers to the characteristics of women, men, girls, and boys that are socially constructed. This is particularly so when our young men and women are so vulnerable. That's right. Women and girls, Mr. Speaker, it is so hard to tell these days, Mr. Speaker, but our men and girls seems to be more at risk than our men and boys. Gone were the days when our women and girls were more protected against violence. The killing of women and girls is now a major concern. Mr. Speaker, while we have achieved so much, we need to find a way to change the mindset of our citizens so that they will understand the important roles that our women plays in society. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to seem to be prejudiced against males, as the responsibility for both gender is mine. I also see the vulnerability of our boys, so many of whom are being introduced to violence and caused to violent choices early in their lives. Yet, our women and girls seems to be at a greater risk of domestic violence and sexual abuse. So, Speaker, our women represent the backbone within families and communities at large. As such, they provide care, support, and nurturing to their children and loved ones. This makes them very essential to the development of our children, communities, and the society. So, Speaker, women are now taking on lots of leadership roles in businesses, which is a significant development for us. So, Speaker, We want to find a way to protect and safeguard our women and girls against any kind of violence. We must work relentlessly to ensure that every woman and girl are protected from any physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. Mr. Speaker, our women should be able to feed, empower, educate, and keep our children safe. Mr. Speaker, many of our women and girls are still disappearing. There are families that are grieving as they do not know the fate of their loved ones. Mr. Speaker, whilst there is much work done in reducing gender-based violence, there is still a great need for more work to be done by the country. I call for greater public education and empowerment of our women. Mr. Speaker, we have heard it often, but it cannot be said enough. When you empower women, we empower families, communities, and the nation. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to our men and boys. And I just heard my colleagues say, what about the man then? Mr. Speaker, our men and boys are also at risk. They suffer from anxiety, depression, and mental health issues. Mr. Speaker, this is of major concern. These issues are made worse by cultural expectations. The website, the whole heap oversees things and they believe it is true and they're not getting it. Economic challenges and social pressure that our men and boys experience on a daily basis. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the factors that contribute to domestic violence in our country. And there is a greater need for public education because there's a stigma attached, Mr. Speaker, that men do not want to come forward because they feel it's going to look like they are girls. We need more mental health services and trained professionals to cater to the needs of our men and boys. Mr. Speaker, we also need mental health education awareness program to be developed that specifically address the needs of men and boys. There should also be more programs like the Male Awareness Now, that they call MAN, and peer support groups that provide support and promote awareness. Mr. Speaker, programs like these will reduce stigma and promote better mental health. Mr. Speaker, if this is not addressed, we will not be able to address crime and violence in this country in its entirety. Mr. Speaker, there is much to be done, and I believe the country is taking a backward step. Social decay is on the rise. Social decay refers to the deterioration of social norms, values, structures, and institutions that are fundamental for the functioning and the stability of a community or society. Mr. Speaker, I want to shift now from my portfolio and look at a matter that sounds simple to some, but is central to any national development. And I want to speak now, Mr. Speaker. We need to bring back values and attitude back to the forefront of our thinking and doing. Parents and guardians have to take their job more seriously because we are losing our nation's children to society. The onus is on each and every one of us to make sure that we instill good family values and wholesome principles in children and young people. If we fail, Mr. Speaker, to guide, then the result may not be what we want it to be. Others will lead them astray. Mr. Speaker, we have to ensure that we leaders and the representatives are not among the others who are making negative impression on the society. We are charged with developing this in particularly true. This is particularly true of social media, and I heard the Prime Minister was talking about social media, but I hope he is talking about it on both sides, because I too suffer from the same kinds of faith that they speak about over there. But because I know, Mr. Speaker, that when I was being elected, they did not ask me about education. They asked me if I could represent them, and that is what I've been doing for 38 years. Mr. Speaker, a young politician from Grenada said, we have to be careful that we don't burn down the house and preside over ashes. Yes. Mr. Speaker?
Repeat it again for them. Repeat it again for them.
Mr. Speaker, I was told to repeat.
Yes.
A young politician from Grenada said, and I took it very seriously,
Listen to this one, Adley.
we have to be careful that we don't burn down the house and preside over ashes. Mr. Speaker, time come now. We have to do more than balancing the book while the people go astray. It is our responsibility to recognize that an entire generation has been raised in the globalized world.
Member time has expired. House Leader.
Yeah?
Let her finish.
Let me finish it.
Mr. Speaker, the member's time having expired, I beg to move that it be extended sufficiently for her to conclude her presentation. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you
Motion
so much,
on the table.
Leader.
The motion on the table that the member's time be extended sufficiently for her to finish her presentation. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it.
Thank you so much, House Leader, and thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It is our responsibility to recognize that an entire generation has been raised in the globalized world. That civics education now is going to play a critical role. We have to look towards readjusting our culture, but we also have some retraining to do. We need to increase and deepen the teaching of civics in schools as a subject area, and I'm very passionate about that. This can save this very generation that we are losing. The Minister of Education made mention of it in her 2023-24 budget presentation that civics is back in schools. Mr. Speaker, I was very elated at this news. I went outside of the Parliament where there was a display of textbooks and learning tools and asked for a book on civics. And to my surprise, there was none. Only, and they said it's only the curriculum was available. So, Speaker, I recall the text Civics for Young Jamaicans by the late L.C. Ruddock, who served the Ministry of Education as an education officer and later as an advisor. This book was revised and proved useful. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to advise the Minister of Education to make sure that we get civics back into the school, not in the way which we infuse, because it's an infusion into the other subject areas. We want it to stand alone as a subject. I was told that come September you might be having textbook. I beg of you, Minister, to ensure that it is not just introduced, but it is a subject, because, Mr. Speaker, I really want to remind this Parliament and the wider society the importance of teaching civics in schools, especially now that our children place so little value on their history and their rights and their roles as citizens. So, Speaker, civics will help us all as citizens too. Know our rights and responsibilities, safeguard individuals' freedoms, and promote social justice. Civic encourages people to take an active role in their communities, leading to positive social and political change. It promotes better understanding and tolerance among people of different backgrounds. Civic education can help to build a better Jamaica and bring about better, well-informed leaders. Because, Mr. Speaker, I can tell you, I hear they talk about read and write, but there are 3/4 of people who can read and write, but they have no sense. They don't know nothing about their culture, their origin, their background. They know nothing. And when you start a conversation with them, Mr. Speaker, you realize that is why we are having so much problem when we have legislation, because they have no knowledge of it. Civic education helps individuals to develop critical thinking skills. It teaches how a country operates and our roles and function in society. In closing, Mr. Speaker, upon reflection, the portfolio of culture, gender, entertainment, and sports, as presently configured, and the segment that I shadow, have a central and pivotal role to play in our development in properly and an orderly society. Unfortunately, with all that has been announced here today across the critical areas of gender, sports, and cultural and creative industries, it has not been enough. It has not been sufficient to address the real national problems in the ways that it should or that it would have. If it had, Mr. Speaker, for example, this array of defamation and libel lawsuits and threats of lawsuits being circulated would be unnecessary. Sure, yes. If we had over time engendered a greater sense of care, humanity, and one love in our people through deliberate culture in development and measures. Yes. And perhaps, Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't think we need to censor, restrict, and clamp down on free speech. That's right. If we had, over time, engendered a greater sense of decency through planned and structural values and attitude approaches to cultural development, and perhaps, Mr. Speaker, our people, our gift of expression and sporting facility would flourish if we had made more meaningful, coordinated contribution to their development. And perhaps, Mr. Speaker, the political animosity that translates to national anxiety would be reduced. If we, as national leaders, also spent more time on civility in culture across race, social classes, and gender. And finally, Mr. Speaker, and I believe I will leave you with this thought. Perhaps if we in this House spend more time trying to be wise rather than to be smart, if fewer of us who can make a real difference refuse to sit back amidst and presiding over the inequality, the inequity, and indecency, then we would be further ahead with the people's development that is the missing link across much of what we have heard today. But this is why we are on the road to change, Mr. Speaker. And the time has certainly come. Change will be seen in our commitment to these principles as moral obligation and a requirement for the creation of a just and impartial society. Change will be seen the encouragement of sustained investment and engagement in proper planning for the culture and the creative industries, so as diversity, the earning potential of all Jamaicans, including the youth, women, persons with disabilities, to increase wealth and opportunities. Change will be seen in our pledge to actively endorse and uphold the values of inclusivity and transparency in our daily lives, institutions, and policies. By doing so, Mr. Speaker, we honor the dignity of every person and affirm their rightful place in our shared human community. Change will be seen in the way in which we champion the rights of women, men, and individuals with disabilities, building stronger, more resistant communities, and setting an example for future generations. Let us work together to ensure that inclusion is not merely an ideal we aspire to, but a reality for all. Change will be seen in building gender-inclusive society where no one is left behind because of disabilities, poverty, lack of access to social and economic possibilities. We must invest in education, infrastructure, entrepreneurship, and innovation. Growth and prosperity must be shared equity. As leaders, we create a brighter future for the next generation. I once again feel a spirit of care blowing in the wind, coming closer and closer. That is at the center of change, added to justice and truth, championed by our opposition leader, Mark Jefferson Golden, will complete the cycle to guide the next PNP government. Soon and very soon, he leads us along the road to change, inspired by those who came before, like the late Michael Manley, our former Prime Minister and party president, who said, and I quote, "Any holistic vision of change must be based on the notion of empowerment. There is no other way." I end today by saying the names of those wise, formidable women who sat on both sides of this House, providing stellar representation, wise counsel, care, and empowerment in the formulation of national policy and shaping Jamaican society, so that we must be reminded Violet Nielsen. Humble, a woman who walks with kings and queens but never lose her common touch. May her soul rest in peace. Madam Rose Leon, Harris King, Macy Galmore, Carmen McGregor, Margaret Taylor, Shaini Robinson, Maxine Henry Wilson, and the dozens of others, including our own unmatched Portia Simpson Miller, who goes down in history as honorable. I stand on their shoulders and walk in their footsteps, straight back to representing, walking with, standing for, and celebrating the people of Eastern St. Catherine, who sent me here to speak on their behalf. Should it please you, Mr. Speaker?
Well done. Well, beautiful, beautiful.
I want to thank the member of St. Catherine Eastern, Shadow Spokesperson of Gender Affairs, Persons with Disabilities and Inclusion, for a wonderful presentation that was had. Announcements? House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that this really is a fitting way to end the formal elements of this sectoral debate for this year. Next week, of course, we close, but certainly today was a climax from two of the finest members of this House, the Minister of Gender, Sports, Entertainment, Culture, and Deputy House Leader, Member of Parliament for Central St. Catherine, the Honorable Olivia Grange, OJ. Very important to remember, OJ. And of course, this veteran MP and long-serving member of great distinction from St. Catherine Eastern. Excellent presentation, both of you, and thank you for making the contribution. But I'll have more to say next week when we close. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move then for the suspension of the sectoral debate until next Tuesday, July 2nd, when we will close. Mr. Speaker, I beg for a recommittal then of all the items that, or rather not quite a recommittal, but I beg to move that you now proceed to cover the items of the agenda that were not dealt with in favor of the sectoral debate conclusions. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Those in favor? The ayes have it. Announcements?
Laid on the table of the House today are the following: financial statements of the Consolidated Fund for the year ended March 31, 2024, and its related ministry paper numbered 34 of 2024. Annual report of the Southern Regional Health Authority for the financial year 2014-2015, and its related ministry paper numbered 35 of 2024. Annual report and audited financial statements of the Bureau of Standards Jamaica for the financial years 2019-2020 and 2020-2021. Annual report and audited financial statements of National Hotels and Properties Limited for the financial year 2019-2020. Annual report of the Milk River Hotel and Mineral Spa for the financial year 2021-2022. The Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency amendment of First Schedule Order 2024 and its resolution under the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Act, and the Trademarks Regulation of Agents Rules 2024 and its resolution, and the Trademarks Amendment Number 2 Rules 2024 and its resolution under the Trademarks Act.
Bills brought from the Senate.
The following is a message from the President of the Senate. To the Honorable House of Representatives, I have the honor to advise the Honorable House of Representatives that on the 14th day of June 2024, a bill entitled An Act to Amend the Financial Administration and Audit Act was passed in the Senate without amendment. Signed, Thomas Tavares Finson, OJ, CD, QC, JP, President of the Senate.
Petitions, papers, reports from committees.
On the item of reports from committee, there can be no report on this committee from committees for the reason that many of the committees are not meeting. And I speak specifically of the Economy and Production Committee, to which a motion, a resolution of this House has been referred by a resolution of this House, and the committee is refusing to meet to deal with the matter. It's untenable, Mr. Speaker.
House Leader.
So I do appreciate that members do have latitude, but it is not becoming for members to use the space provided for actual reporting. Now, if a report was made and there is need for a commentary on the report, then fine. But this is for future, because the member has done it. And, well, the member has done it, but I would urge that the member or any other member attempt not to do again. May it please you.
I think that the leader of the House is usurping his office. This item here deals with reports of committee and all matters. I belong to a committee. I am reporting on the economy. Listen and you will hear. That's the point, Mr. Speaker. And he's trying to muzzle me now. I am reporting that we cannot report because the committee refused to meet. That is my report as a member of a committee. And I have no other provision in the standing order to raise matters related to the committee than the one that is here.
Mr. Speaker, it is well understood that motions can be made by members with regard to any aspect of the House which they find needs either adjustment, amendment, or improvement. But it is not in the place of a member on an item relating to an actual report, which must first of all be tabled, to then make a statement and to allude to responding to that particular item. It is absolutely out of order and not to be countenanced. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, just for clarity, I think the member is quite correct, because the actual resolution that came from this chamber had some specific timelines by which a report ought to have been returned to us. I think it was 40 days, was that so? So, Leader of Government Business, I think the member is quite correct in urging that the resolution that we passed, that stipulated that a report should come within a certain time frame, that be honored. The report on the BOJ issues. Remember, it was sent to the Economy and Production Committee from here. Well, no, yes, no, No, he came here with a motion, and it was in fact debated and passed. And it requires that the Economy and Production Committee meets and report within 40 days, and that has not happened.
Just for good order, and I'm surprised that this is becoming a debate, because it is a clear position in the House. You know, the agenda items are established, we follow them, and the House receives reports on which the chairman of such committee would make his report. Now, if there is no report before the House, there can not be a discussion in relation to it. So if the member has a concern in the way in which the business, then he puts it in a motion. That is why we have motions. That's exactly why we have motions. And we cannot operate the House this way, and on my watch, we will not have it this way. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Sure. Members, please. Members. I was advised that there is a meeting of the committee on the second week of July. We're on the item reports from committee. Notices of motions given orally.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House, I will move. Whereas Standing Orders 32A1 stipulates that the sectoral debate shall last no longer than 6 weeks in each year. And whereas the 2024-25 sectoral debate commenced on April 30, 2024, and the 6-week period expired on June 4, 2024. And whereas on May 29, 2024, the House approved a resolution to extend the sectoral debate until June 25, 2024. Be it resolved that notwithstanding Standing Orders 32A1, the sectoral debates be further extended until July 2, 2024. Mr. Speaker, I further beg to give notice that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of National Security, I beg to move the following motion. The Major Organization Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Act. And it is the Major Organization Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Amendment of First Schedule Order 2024 Resolution. Whereas, by virtue of Section 43B of the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, the Minister may by order amend the schedules to the Act other than the custodial penalties. And whereas, by virtue of said section, an order made under that section shall be subject to affirmative resolution. And whereas, on the 5th day of June 2024, the Minister made the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Amendment Act Order 2024, and whereas it is desirable that the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Amendment of First Schedule Order 2024 be affirmed. Now, therefore, be it resolved by this Honorable House as follows. 1. This resolution may be cited as the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Amendment of First Schedule Order number 2020. I'll have to read this again.
Sure.
This resolution may be cited as the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Amendment of First Schedule Order 2024 Resolution. And 2, the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency Amendment of First Schedule, Order 2024, is hereby affirmed. Madam Speaker, I further beg to give, Mr. Speaker, what's happening this afternoon? Be it further, I beg to give further notice that at a later stage, the Minister will move for the suspension of standing orders to enable him to take the motion. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice on behalf of Honorable Minister of Finance and the Public Service that at the next meeting of the House, he will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Income Tax Amendment Act 2024. Mr. Speaker, I also beg to give notice on behalf of the Minister of Justice that at the next meeting of the House, he will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the Maintenance Amendment Act 2024.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, I beg to move the following motion. The Trademarks Act. Whereas Section 78 of the Trademarks Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, provides that the Minister may from time to time make such rules subject to affirmative resolution. A, for regulating the practice under the Act, including the services of documents. B, for classifying goods for the purposes of registration of trademarks. C, for making or requiring duplicates of trademarks and other documents. D, for securing and regulating the publishing and selling or distributing in such manner as as he may think fit of copies of trademarks and other documents. E, for the regulation of trademark agents. F, prescribing fees payable under this Act. G, generally for regulating the business of the office in relation to trademarks and all things by this Act placed under the direction or control of the registrar. And whereas, on the 12th day of June 2024, the Minister made the Trademarks Amendment Number 2 Rules 2024. Now therefore, be it resolved by this Honourable House as follows. 1. This resolution may be cited as the Trademarks Amendment Number 2 Rules 2024 Resolution. And 2. The Trademark Amendment Number 2 Rules 2024 are affirmed. Mr. Speaker, I further beg that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing order to enable me to take this motion on his behalf. I think we have two motions here for the trademark, yes. The second one is related similarly to the first, Mr. Speaker, and I'll just read it for the benefit of this Honourable House. And this is Trademarks Amendment Number 2, Rules 2024 Resolution. Whereas Section 78 of the Trademarks Act, hereinafter referred to as the Act, provides that the Minister may from time to time make such rules subject to affirmative resolution. 1, for regulating the practice under the Act, including the service of documents. B, for classifying goods for the purpose of registration of trademarks. C, for making or requiring duplicates of trademarks and other documents. D, for securing and regulating the publishing and selling or distributing in such manner as he may think fit of copies of trademarks and other documents. E, for the regulation of trademark agents. F, for prescribing fees payable under this Act. And G, generally, for regulating the business of the office in relation to trademarks and all things by this Act placed under the direction or control of the registrar. And whereas on the 12th day of June 2024, the Minister made the Trademarks Amendment Number 2 Rules 2024. Now therefore, be it resolved by this Honourable House. 1. The resolution may be cited as the Trademark Amendment Number 2 Rules 2024 Resolution, and 2. The Trademark Amendment Rule Number 2 Rules 2024 are affirmed. And Mr. Speaker, I further beg also that at a later stage today, I will move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take this motion on his behalf. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
Questions and answers to questions. Motions that may be made at the commencement of public business requiring notice. Motions relating to sitting of the House. Motions for leave to introduce bills. Presentation of bills without leave of the House first obtained. Public business. House Leader.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, I now move for the suspension of the standing orders to enable me to take the motion in relation to the extension of the sectoral debate, notice of which I gave earlier.
The question is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the Minister to take the motion, notice of which was given earlier. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, there isn't much to be said further than we had indicated earlier by way of seeking for the extension of the debate to enable its closure next week. I therefore ask that the motion be approved.
The question is that the motion, notice of which the Minister gave earlier, be approved. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in a similar vein, I beg to move that the motions given moved earlier in regards to the Trademark Amendment Act be approved.
The question is that the standing orders be suspended to enable the Minister to take the motion, notice of which he gave earlier. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the motions be approved.
The question is that the motion, notice of which the Minister gave earlier, be approved. Those in favor?
Mr. Speaker, these matters were not on the order paper, but for them to be dealt with today. And in fairness to the opposition, we are just seeing them. And right, this is the Trademarks Act. This is a very important regulation that goes with the operations of trademarks. And I think in fairness to us, we really do need the opportunity to peruse it. And I would suggest that we defer it until next week when we'll have gotten the opportunity to do so.
House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I have no difficulty with that at all, because as I indicated, I moved the motion on behalf of the Minister, and I'm sure that, yes, the House recognizes this, Mr. Speaker, and
House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, it's not intended to do any further business today. I therefore beg to move that this Honorable House be adjourned until Tuesday, July 2nd at 2 p.m. at the George William Gordon House. May it please you, Mr. Speaker.
The motion on the table is for this House to be adjourned. All those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it.